What I have here is the hearings and the body cam recording. The two hearings are CD-ROMs. The body cam recording is a DVD-R. So I'm unable to play the DVD-R. I'm going to look into converting it into something else auditable at a later date. But here's the first of the two hearings, the one that took place October 4th, 2018. Okay, so I'm about to do the videos of the hearings and the body cam. The first one is from October 18th, and today is, October 18th, 2018. October 4th, 2018. Ain't that my bitch? So, anyhow, I've been trying to get to this for like the last 2 days. I purchased that box on the 10th. Today's the 13th. And I originally planned on doing it in the kitchen. But I think I'm going to sit in the living room where I can kind of have my back against the wall because I'm going to need to press play and stuff like that. And like, I don't know if I just said that, but I was pent in the bed for like the last 2 hours trying to get up enough energy to do this. So it's horrible. Like, the attacks with science get really bad when they see me about to get to this. They'll talk and talk and talk and agitate and agitate for hours at a time, and then when they see me moving towards it, they attack with science, and that keeps me from getting to it. It puts me in the down position. So, and sometimes it's something like sleep paralysis. Like, imagine sleep paralysis but being awake. Like, anyhow. So I'm gonna sit against the wall in the room. And the first one, like I said, is from, I'm gonna give you the exact date. Okay, so yeah, the 4th. Okay, be sure to read the description on these videos. Anything that I can't make it a point to mention it, I'll annotate in the description box. So this has 2 tracks. Here's the first.
This is case number 2018 MI 220 in the matter of Victoria Oliver. Victoria, my name is...
Real quick. I spoke with 2 attorneys prior to this. The first attorney was just there to advise, and he was pretty much letting me know that, I had the right to even speak with someone that was out of the state, not affiliated with the hospital, and that was what I chose. And I chose that option in front of the caseworker, the doctor, and her 2 students. And I never got that second opinion from someone not affiliated with the hospital or out of the state. So that was the first red flag. Before this hearing, my attorney was supposed to talk to me then. He didn't talk to me. You're going to see the difference in my voice when he asked us, did I get a chance to speak with him? When he asked me, I kind of looked at the attorney like, and his chair is angled where it's like this, and he looked back at me like, bitch, I got this, like, and I'm like, no, you don't. So anyhow, I said, yeah.
I'm a magistrate from the probate court.
His name is Attorney Joe Perry. He misrepresented me. I had him both times. The second time he didn't remember me, and both times he misrepresented.
We are here on 2 separate matters. First is that an affidavit was filed in the probate court to determine whether or not you need to be in the hospital anymore, and if so, for how long. Second application that was filed with the court is determine whether or not you should be treated with medication over your objection. You understand why we're here today?
Yes.
You had a chance to talk to your attorney, Mr. Perry?
Okay.
All right, open remarks, counsel.
No way. Same here.
Doctor, is there any testimony you give me the whole truth to help you guys?
I do.
Doctor, state your name and occupation.
My name is Shah Jalise. I'm a psychiatrist.
Mr. Perry, same stipulations, please. Qualifications and records.
Yes.
Thank you. So, doctor, when was the patient admitted?
So Victoria was admitted on 9/24/2018.
All right. briefly tell us the history.
So Victoria was actually picked up by the police because she was wandering in the YMCA. They felt that she was not in the right state of mind.
Okay, so wandering in the YMCA, you see this also in the paperwork. They've said that I was wandering inside of the YMCA. You can't get in there after hours. They said that I was wandering around the YMCA. They said that I was wandering, just wandering. None of that ever took place. So there's a complaint. There's a lot of supporting documentation that goes along with this. And you can find that information on my Facebook page in the folder or album that's titled Formal Complaints or Written Complaints. And it'll also have someone's responses to those complaints.
When I saw her, she came to me with several papers showing me that the government is after her because she's the mother of Christ. She stated that the government has 10 devices, 6 of them are telekinesis, which she explained was magic. She also said that there are 4 devices which were put in her car by the government before they sold her on April 9, 2017. The patient also mentioned that there are implants, and the patient she also informed me that these implants let her know what's going on ahead of time, and that she knew ahead of time that her cousin will be killed, her ex-fiance will be possessed, and her mother will get in a wreck before it actually happened. She also mentioned at the end that she had a planner which was stolen from her that had all the evidence that what was going on.
Okay, I want you to see how ignorant they regard these type of matters and how they try to undermine the individual by pretty much stating their claims in a very ignorant manner. You can imagine that's not how I communicated those issues to him.
So what is her diagnosis?
So, in my opinion, I think this is, I call it an unspecified psychotic disorder. This could very well be a delusional disorder. It could also be a schizoaffective disorder, which I'm not sure of, but certainly some kind of form of thought disorder.
Has she improved any since admission?
No, she hasn't. She's actually refused all the medications. She felt that she does not need to be on any medications at all throughout this time. Offered it to her. I offered her Invega. She did not feel that there was anything wrong. There was nothing that for which she needs to take the medication. I would like to add that her blood pressure was on the higher side several times during her admission, and we offered her at least as needed medication, and she did not feel that that is something that she needed as well. I do want to mention some of the numbers here, which are pretty high. 10 first at 160 over 116, then 10 second is 165 over 118, 10 third is 148 by 98, and today was actually the first day when our blood pressure was within normal range and pretty decent, which was 121 by 78.
Okay, something about the blood pressure, I actually kept track of it too the entire time that I was there. So I was able to combat that, but when I combated it off record. So you won't even get a chance to hear how, that was, I don't, how that was, exposed, I suppose, Okay, for this blood pressure thing, it first took place in 2014. They were giving me crazy numbers. I got hospitalized twice for high blood pressure. I'm talking about 200 over 160 something. So, at that time, I did not know that the government was attacking me. They had not made, themselves visible in any way. I just knew that something foreign was taking place and that there was no, the numbers did not add up to how I felt. I wasn't getting any of the symptoms. So, and yeah, some of you would say they noted the silent killer. But anyhow, how I realized it was in Akron at the CBOC when they spiked it. I realized they were spiking my blood pressure then, and I started to pay attention to it more. Because during that time in 2014, I watched it quite a bit, real close, and then I got away from it because my numbers were always in normal range, and So it started around May, June 2017. This is after the government has started remotely communicating with me. And so I began to track it again. Because I was feeling them squeeze, like they were making my limbs tight. That was one of many of the attacks that they were doing at the time. They were making my limbs feel like they were going to bust. That's something else, that they'll try to use to say that you're not in your right state of mind. That's the whole point in bringing it up.
Before we go further, you have offered her by way of medications in Vega?
Yes.
And she's refused?
She's refused. She does not feel that she needs it.
Along with just voicing the fact that her opinion that she doesn't need it, did she voice any religious objections to the medicine?
Not to me.
All right. You have...
I told him I was spiritual. When they brought up the topic, or when he brought up the topic of religion, I told him that I did not have a religious preference, that I was spiritual, and in the court of law, that's not recognized because it's not anything that they're affiliated with. They don't have, it's like treaties, having an agreement to recognize something. That's what religion is. So if I would have said I'm Muslim and that's my objection to the medicine, they wouldn't have had anything else to say. If I would have said I'm Christian, I believe that this or that, they wouldn't have had anything else to say. But they do not recognize spirituality.
Done a capacity assessment evaluation with this lady?
Yeah, we did it one, and I got a second opinion from Dr. Lewis, who agrees with the fact that she needs to be on medications.
All right, so both of you have concluded that she does not need that she lacks the capacity?
Yes.
All right. Do you know whether she's taken Invega before? I didn't catch that.
No, she has never been admitted to a psych unit before, and there's no history of her taking any medications from what she told me.
Okay, all right. Now, you talked about a PRN medication. Did she refuse that as well?
Yes, that was just meant for blood pressure. I requested her, please, that you're going to end up with a stroke if you don't take it, but she decided that she's going to wait and see how that works.
But obviously, by what you told us, her blood pressure seems to have at least leveled to a reasonable degree.
Right now, I know that they're not able to kill me or harm me in any way, so that's why I took the approach that I took.
Yes, that is true.
All right, so let's talk about risk of harm. Does she represent a risk of harm to herself or others?
As such, she does not. She is not. She's a very pleasant woman. Been very pleasant throughout the interview, and there has not been any. We didn't need any PRN medications, any restraints, or anything like that. The only concern, obviously, that remains is the fact that if somebody, there's nothing wrong with anybody.
That's some bullshit too. Pleasant, very pleasant, but you don't mind saying that everything that I'm experiencing is a lie, a thought disorder. It is weird, like when you mention the government, it's automatically a threat. It's a lot of points against you. So no matter how pleasant you are, no matter how educated you are, they are going to discredit your word.
Being delusional and being in the community and being by themselves. So that's where the decision is, and that's why I came to the court instead of deciding it myself. So as far as any self-harm goes, as far as harming anybody else, she has not done anything actively that I'm aware of that was a danger to herself or others. It was this just pink slip by the police because of that delusional behavior. It felt very odd to them. And they brought her to the hospital, and I feel that it will help if she would take the medications and follow up.
So, where was this lady residing prior to the admission?
She's homeless, as far as I know, and unemployed as well.
So what are you going to do with her if the court says she's going to be discharged? You're going to put her out in the street?
I don't have a choice, and that's why I brought her here in front and wanted you to decide in my...
They refused to acknowledge that I had an AMHA voucher. So this was all strategically planned. Like, I had the voucher in hand and was actively searching, and I've noted that more than one time, and they would not acknowledge it.
In my mind, I thought that this is something that would help if the patient gets treated, but at the same time, you might argue with me that the patient is not actively suicidal, not actively homicidal, very cooperative. So that's a decision I could not make. In my mind, it would help if she gets scooted. And if we open her up to CSS, maybe we can get her into the homeless outreach program and have some more services for her. Unless she finds a place for herself, which I do not know whether she does.
Yeah, let's go through it. Sure, so what's going to happen? I mean,
Okay, so he went off the record without notice. That's what just happened. And a lot of stuff took place off the record. You know, I said quite a bit and I presented quite a bit of evidence. All of which was dismissed literally as soon as we went back on the record. You'll find when the ward was given an opportunity to add some of those things to the record, he couldn't even remember what took place. So instead he turned to me. So let's go to the second track. These are out of order.
We're going to go back on the record, case number 2018, hold on. 2018 MI 220. All right, we've had a rather lengthy discussion off the record based on the doctor's testimony, the respondent's testimony, and the social worker's testimony. Mr. Ward, do you want to put any of that on the record?
well, I guess probably rather than I put it back on the record, I think the appropriate thing would be to follow up and ask, in light of this discussion that we've had,
Sure.
continue my questioning of the doctor.
Okay.
And then he can explain for himself, as he did moments ago, what his concerns are, and then we'll take it from there. And if
Okay.
he has something she wants to put on the record, that's fine too. But I guess I would, at this point, probably just resume my questioning of Dr. Toulouse.
Okay.
So, Doctor, when we went off the record, I think you as best I can recall, you talked about, we were talking about the risk of harm, and you've made it clear that she's not an active, she's not a homicidal risk or a suicidal risk, correct?
Yes.
All right, so then why, let me just ask you this in general, that you can explain, so then why haven't you discharged this person?
So the concern always remains whenever somebody has some kind of formal thought disorder, delusional thinking, or hearing things, paranoia. It is a secondary risk, not an active risk, but a passive risk for the person to be able to take care of himself, herself, while in the community. And that was the risk that always is there. I cannot predict what would happen. I cannot tell that this is going to happen. That is whether there is a possibility, probability, sure.
So if you can read in between the bullshit, that's how they completely try to strip you of your rights.
Sure enough, there's a very high probability that she would not be able to take care of herself, and that is the reason why I help her.
You're saying that a 33 at the time year old woman who's taking care of herself her entire life, now because she hears the government talking to her that she can't take care of herself anymore.
Now, you also, we had a discussion with regard to her blood pressure.
Correct.
And my understanding is, as a result of some pretty high readings earlier in the week, you have offered her a medication to address that issue.
I did.
She refused that medication.
Yes, and she
Could, for a while, except from what I understand, with the exception of the reading this morning, the blood pressures have remained relatively high.
that is correct.
And so what is your concern in that regard? I mean,
So obviously, that can say somebody with those high readings and not taking medications can end up with a stroke.
okay. And have you discussed that with this lady?
Very, very clearly. And I actually begged her to just take the as-needed PRN medication. Then she said, no, I'm going to take the risk. I have good genes. I will take the risk.
And she's not been offered that medication since she certainly hasn't asked for it.
No. So I actually 2-3 times during this, every day that I've met her, I asked her, please, would you take the medication? Will you take the medication? And she was very clear in the fact that she's not going to budge in for taking any medications. because she does not think that she needs medication. Usually her response would be, I don't do medications.
But again, and you became very animated about it for very candidly. But the point is that it is a serious matter. It needs to be addressed.
It certainly is a very serious matter and certainly needs to be addressed. So we're talking about here, if she doesn't take the medication, the risk of having stroke is pretty high. If it consistently stays that high, and then obviously with the delusional thinking, that could affect her, it will risk her being able to take care of herself outside of the hospital.
Okay, now one thing that I just want to note to you is I've talked about remote neural monitoring. That is a real phenomenon and is one that's within that government agencies use to monitor the activity. It's supposed to be for monitoring criminal activity, but it's just to monitor like pretty much those who recognize the government as a problem. So anyhow, with remote neural monitoring, you can see thoughts as they form. That's what took place during this hearing. That's the government's weapon. That's how they keep you from making a valid argument in the court of law, literally every time that you step into a room for some sort of hearing. It will always boil down to how good the argument is. I've never lost an argument in my life until the government began to attack me and made it apparent that they were using remote neural monitoring to jam my thought process or to jam my neurons. For example, it's also to see they use it as a probing tool. So as they're talking to me, that's a form of probing. They're seeing how I'm going to respond to certain things. And when they see how I respond, they'll get that response and they'll block it. So that when this comes up in conversation, I won't be able to reference it. So there was a lot of things. Like I took notes probably a year ago on this. And it's probably in storage now. But like that's stuff that I would normally be able to recall easily. I cannot recall any of those things. It's plenty that I had to say about this hearing that I cannot access right now.
Okay, so with that being said, then what is your recommendation?
Yeah, so the recommendation would be that she be on an antipsychotic and she start taking I'm going to get a medical consult to get the medications in place for the blood pressure as well. And then hoping to open her up with community support services where there are more services available, and maybe opening her up to the outreach program, finding some kind of placement for her.
This is a team. You need to understand that this is a team. All these federally funded programs work together. They're there to push medication and to push federally funded programs. So no matter how much, I have to revert back to that, no matter how much I made it apparent that I have the housing situation under control, he's using that. He's using me being homeless as his crutch to pretty much connect me with CSS. And the 90-day, they're all connected. The 90-day program, civil commitment, requires that you be connected with CSS.
So what's your opinion?
Wait. But one more very important thing. The most you never hear anyone claim that their crisis mother has too large of a claim to be ignored or to be neglected or dealt with in a fashion